Welcome to Inside the 87s, your home for updates of one of the top junior hockey programs in the EHL, located in the hockey hotbed of New Jersey, where hockey players are molded for the next level, the 87 way.
Hello fans and welcome to another edition of Inside the 87s. My name's Anthony DiPaolo. I'm joined alongside Chris Russo. And in today's episode, we have a special guest, the head coach of the EHLP team, Connell McNeilis. Chris, this is a coach who, something we don't see very often, there was a coaching change after the 87s P team had won a title, but that was also because the organization was expanding. Adam and Matt felt like they needed someone else to take the reins for the EHLP team, and it happened to be Connell.
Yeah, they didn't want to stretch themselves too thin, and obviously that worked out because the 18U team has developed quite well so early, and the 87s ended up winning their first EHL title. Not to mention it's just an organizational structure from top down. Everybody is involved with everything, really, I would say. I mean, we're not coaching, but and so, we talked about how Connell not only did a great job with the EHLP team this year in leading them all the way back to the division finals and having a great 2022 calendar year so far. They really bounced back after the holiday break, but pushing the Little Flyers to the brink in both of their games in that final playoff series. And after that, just doing a great job with the 87s, with the EHL organization, helping them out as they gladly brought him on and used his expertise in making this team into a much smarter, much more fundamentally sound just roster going into this postseason and all the way through this postseason, including while he was still coaching the EHLP team, while their season was still going on. So, yeah, he really made a difference for the 87s this year at every level.
Yep, there's certainly a learning curve, whether it's transitioning from the college game to the junior game. There was a learning curve coaching such a young EHLP team, and also bouncing back, as you mentioned, after the holiday break. We have all that included in this interview. Normally it would be a one-on-one, but Chris and I doing the interview, it's a bit of a two-on-one, an odd man rush, if you will. So here it is, our interview with 87's EHLP coach, Connell McNeilis. So for this week's episode of Inside the 87s, we are joined by the coach of the 87's EHLP team, Connell McNeilis. He had just completed his first season as the head coach of the 87's P team. Connell, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Always good to chat, and been loving the podcast so far, and I'm glad we're keeping up with it.
Connell, to lead things off, you were with Newman College. You coached for a couple of different collegiate programs. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you did before joining the 87s and sort of the lead up to becoming a part of this organization?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm a New Jersey guy. I grew up in the area playing for the Generals and RBC and all that, and the Hitmen briefly. And, coming out of college after playing a club up at Syracuse, I kind of got right into coaching right away and wasn't really sure that was going to be my career path. But as I kind of kept going with it and I realized this is what I wanted to do, I made a couple jumps. I moved out to Michigan, which was a big move for me with Adrian College. For those who don't know about Adrian, that's the biggest college hockey program in the country. Between their NCAA teams, and their men's NCAA team just won the national championship. They also have 3 ACHA men's programs and 2 ACHA women's programs. So I went out and coached with their ACHA program with the 2 teams, the ACHA 1 and 3, which was a great experience, and kind of knew I wanted to go in the hockey world, and especially the college hockey world. And then when I got the opportunity to go coach NCAA with Newman, to be a little bit closer to home, it was a no-brainer for me. And I really loved that world. And that's kind of how I got introduced to the 87s is through recruiting, right? I kind of developed this rapport with Matt and Adam, checking them out. The Little Flyers played at our home rink at Newman down there in Aston. So the EHL became a fairly easy league for us to see, which during the course of a college hockey season, which is much more condensed, and fast paced than the longer junior season. That was great for us. Obviously to go see an NA game or a game in Canada was nice, but to be able to watch an EHL game before one of our practices was such a huge advantage. And so I got to see a lot of the 87s and some of the great players they've had over the years. And obviously Adam has known my brother for a little bit. He had coached them, and Matt knew my family a little bit, but to develop that relationship through them with recruiting is kind of what got my foot in the door for when they expanded to the U18 program. Was when we started having those conversations of me coming in, and it was a no-brainer to work with them. To be closer to home was a great chance. I've been moving around the last couple of years. That was really exciting for me, and to be a part of a program, that was coming off a P championship, and then to be able to help with an EHL championship in my first year, it was so much fun. I learned so much, but also had a blast doing it. And I can't tell you how excited I am for this next season here. We're really kind of building off of the momentum we've already created.
That's a very good summary, Connell. And I guess we'll kind of pick apart each of the individual points one by one. And I guess first, when those talks really intensified about you coming to join the program, what was your initial thoughts of coaching at the junior hockey level?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be different. I'd become pretty familiar, with the collegiate game and how that worked. But the junior hockey world was a little bit different, especially with, what Matt and Adam had told me about what I was going to do. Our premier team last year was the youngest team the league's ever had. And so that was going to be a different experience going from college where, I had 23, 24, 25-year-olds even, much more mature compared to going to some 17, 18-year-olds. So I knew my approach had to be different. But I think in the long term, it's going to help me for dealing with different people. And that's really all hockey coaching is. And just in life in general, is just dealing with different personalities. So I knew I had to adjust a little bit. The players are going to be a little less seasoned, a little bit more inexperienced, even at the EHL level. When I look at some of our top players, even there, who are now thankfully going to college next year, I knew that it was going to be a bit of a different approach, and they didn't have as much hockey and life experience. So I think I had to be a little bit more patient, and that's a good thing. That's something that is good to learn through life and coaching, is that you're going to have to be patient with different people, and especially going with how young we went with the premier team last year. But I think it taught me a lot, and in the long term is going to make me a better coach because of it. So.
Connell, this past year was kind of a rarity in sports in general, in that you were coming in as a new coach for a team that had just won a championship. Mm-hmm. What do you think you did? What expectations did you set? And how do you think you met those in the first year?
Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly a lot of pressure. I think with the, kind of the overchange of the rosters, it didn't feel, it wasn't like coming in to go coach the Avalanche right now. They just won a Stanley Cup, right, when they're going to have 90% of their team back. I knew for the most part our team was going to be a new team. A lot of those guys who won that premier championship either moved on either to the EHL, someone went to the U18 team this year, and so for the most part I knew I'd have a young team and a new team and an inexperienced team. So I think the pressure was not quite, it might be the same if it was coming into a different circumstances in different years. And Matt and Adam made sure I knew that too. It wasn't like, hey, we're expecting, if there's not a back-to-back here, we have issues. They knew we were doing a bit of a change, especially expanding to the U18 level. We had to go a little bit younger with Premier. But, for me, it doesn't mean I don't want to win. I mean, my goal obviously is to develop and push guys along. But I wanted to compete, and we had some great older leadership guys in that room. Nick Mulder, who won a championship and is now going to Lehigh. I saw him last week, was our captain, and just was so good in that room with a younger and experienced team. And then two guys like Will O'Brien and Jeff Boker to come in to kind of just calm that room down. And then later in the year with Lindbergh and Coley come and help us out, just really rounded things out. So I think the pressures were different. My mindset was more on really working with a young team to try to push them to become better hockey players. And, if there's anything to take from that, we played our best hockey down the stretch, and that's all you could ask for, right? We had a bit of a lull mid-year. And I think once we reset after Christmas break, we were playing our best hockey. And most importantly, I was able to see the progress of some of our players who I know now are going to move up within the program. That's that's the pressure I put on myself in that position. I think you have to adjust expectations to different circumstances and know, what your roster looks like and what's expected of you. So the pressure was not necessarily, it's got to be another championship. It was more like, hey, we need you to really come in and work with this team. And obviously, I think we did that. And you'll see that those dividends being paid off in the next, 2 to 3 years of the 87s and even beyond the 87s.
I actually just want to talk. Sorry, Anthony. I actually just want to ask for 1 second. You're going to like this question. I actually just want to ask for 1 second. One of our favorite moments of the year, I thought, was definitely, it was ultimately a game you guys lost, but it was a day you guys lost, but Halloween, when you came in as yeah, you know where I'm going. You as Ted Lasso, and then just Owen Golka as, I believe I mentioned to him, just the future Academy Award winning performance as
the
you.
Method acting.
Yeah, great method acting. That was Pacino at its finest. But what do you think that really said about what kind of camaraderie this team had this year?
That was I'm getting like goosebumps, like, and I mean that in like the best way possible. That was like I felt so proud and happy, and like that was just so funny. Like, if you can't laugh at yourself, like, you're taking things too serious. And I think that's the best part about something like that, is especially working in the hockey world, working my way up in the coaching world, like sometimes you do take it too serious. And that was, and sometimes it's a good reminder of like, hey, it's a game, it's supposed to be fun. And those are the best memories you have. I was actually just talking to a kid's father who I was doing a lesson with this morning. We were talking about that, and he's going to play for me this upcoming year. And, those are the best memories you have, whether it's the hotel or the bus trips, and like to come in and do that. And the guys had it all, and the sweater vests were rocking, and the boots. It was great. I mean, that was
Don't forget
so
the
awesome.
coffee too.
The coffee, got the
notes about
coffee.
Kevin Bitterly. That was the ones that we can't mention here. That was good.
Right. Yeah. That's right. No, it was awesome. I will cherish that for the rest of my coaching career, wherever that takes me in the country, in the world. That was truly one of my favorite moments. And like, that was, Halloween weekend. So we were about 2 months into the season, 2.5. And that was certainly a moment I'm like, all right, you know what? These guys care about each other, and that's important. Even if they're going to hit rough patches, which obviously we did there for a bit, like, you do know that they care about each other. And if we could get something rolling, it's going to be good. That was, non-hockey. Honestly, overall, that was probably my favorite moment of the season. Like I said, even though we lost the game, it didn't really matter, because at the end of the day, like, those are the memories, and those are hopefully memories that those guys could joke about and rip on me about for 5-10 years from now, whenever it is. Yeah.
I just want to divert a little bit. One moment that I thought was pretty funny, Chris, you weren't there for this one, but this took place at I believe the Worcester Showcase. I was doing play-by-play for one of the games, Connell, for the 87s P team, and in that rink in Worcester, I had to stand on one of the penalty box benches.
Yeah.
So I was like right next to you guys. And I just remember there was a play where there was a lost stick on the ice. Patrick Walensky picked it up and tried tossing it back to the bench. But he tossed it in a way where he sort of like harpooned it. And you ducked. It was like, get down, Mr. President. You ducked because that thing was making a beeline right to your face. And I started losing it on the air. And you're talking about being one of the youngest teams. Like, it's just one of those silly things about etiquette. Something as small as just handing a stick back to the bench, where I guess you could say that that's one of the challenges of coaching a younger team.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was like, at first I was like, and then I remembered that. Yeah. I mean, I don't need any more. I know I already have a couple scars on my face from playing. I don't need any more now coaching. I need to avoid that. So I do remember that. I kind of remember glancing at you. I think you were on my left, and I was just like, what the hell just happened? Like, it was a stick. I'm looking over here. All of a sudden I see a stick out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like trying to do my job here. And now I'm getting, now my players are throwing things at me. So yeah, exactly. Just those little nuances. You're like, guys, just hand the stick over. It's not that hard. Like, you don't need to launch it here. Yeah, exactly.
But what's also funny about this past season, Connell, is that the EHLP team went through very similar trials and tribulations as the EHL team. Mm-hmm. Both teams had 8-game losing streaks. Mm-hmm. And while the P team didn't quite have a 14-game winning streak, your team did go something to the effect of like 9-2 in the calendar year of 2022. Mm-hmm. So the team finished strong. And while unfortunately your team didn't make the Frozen Finals, it was a very good series against the Little Flyers too. So that team really sort of picked up the play in the second half. What would you say were some of the factors leading to that?
I think sometimes, and I was this way as a player sometimes too, when things were going wrong. I think the holiday break was big for us. Being younger, we did have a lot of guys playing high school, which is fine. But I think that just wore them down. I think we were exhausted for a lot of these guys. The jump to the junior game from the youth game, just from a stamina perspective, and not just physical, but mentally, right? I mean, they're 2 hours before the game, 15-minute warm-ups, 20-minute periods, intermission. These are long games instead of your 15-minute period youth games with no ice cut in between. So I think it was just wearing down on us. And we had like a bit of a heart-to-heart, like kind of at the end of that last, we ended with a loss to the Flyers at home before the break, and kind of had a heart-to-heart, and Hooley was in there with me to help out with that. And it was, look, like we have to talk about Ted Lasso, which I love and hold near and dear to my heart. Like change is scary, but you got to make change. There's an episode about that. And I said that, I'm like, everyone's got to look in the mirror and kind of reflect. And I think the leadership group, but like not just the guys I mentioned before, some of the younger guys, I think got more comfortable finally. And that's an adjustment period. It takes time. And that's what I go back to, being patient with these guys. You had to be. And I think some of these guys really took a step to the next level. I mean, you mentioned Olinsky, Anthony O'Brien, and Alex Haar down the stretch were just, they were workhorses for us. And once we had a little bit more depth, because I think those three guys got better and more comfortable together, it helped us. And coming out of the break, we got a win, and played some good hockey up in New Hampshire there in Exeter. And it kind of just spring-loaded us. I think it was just a confidence thing. And like you said, I think we went something like 9-2-1 down the stretch, and had a chance to win both games against the Little Flyers, who were a great team, and Mark does such a good job with them. And there was no shame in losing to that team. But for me, it was more just a comfortability for the guys, and knowing that this level of hockey, there has to be more, preparation and taking care of your bodies and all that things. And I think the break, they got whatever it was, like almost 2 weeks off, like 10, 11 days off to just rest their bodies. And we came out guns blazing, and it was great to see. Like I said, that's the best part of the season for me from a hockey perspective was, we just came out and we mentally made adjustments, and we knew we had to work a little harder. Being a younger, smaller team, we knew we had to probably play a little faster. And I think the guys really bought into what the coaching staff was preaching. And like I said, some of the younger guys in the team really stepped up to the plate, and it helped us. Like you said, we were basically 2 goals away between those 2 games to also be in Providence, and that would have been such a great accomplishment. But I hope they know it was still a great accomplishment to go as far as we did.
Connell, I think another one of my just favorite moments of the season from a hockey standpoint, but also just because I thought it was kind of funny at times, was I think whether it was before or after the EHLP team lost to the Flyers, that it was every time that it was you and Matt Kiernan, and I would say Jason, and pretty much anybody else from the coaching staff that wasn't already on the bench during the EHL games, just there to question officials, which I thought was hysterical, and just me watching ringside.
Usually me talking Maddie off the ledge there. That was I was playing psychiatrist up there with Maddie. So
yeah, so that's one thing. Yeah, so you're a support animal there.
That's right. That's right.
So that's one thing, and then the other, and then of course telling guys which circle to take in the draw. But you were such an integral part of the 87s at the EHL level winning the title. And what did that mean to you for them to bring you into that process, especially down the stretch as we saw you more and more?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was great. And I wasn't quite sure going in. I didn't want to step on any toes, but Matt and Adam were very clearly, they're like, we want you a part of it. And, we had the headsets going, there late in the year, which was great, especially in Providence, where we could kind of talk things out on the bench. And I'd be talking to Falky or Justin and letting them know, what we're seeing from up top. It's amazing. And I loved having both those dynamics, right? Of me running a bench and then me being off the bench, but also involved. I think you see the game so differently. You miss so much when you're on the bench, talking, doing lines. Like, it's amazing. Like, guys would come and ask me a question. I'd be like, I got to check the video because I had no clue. I didn't see it. And then when you're up top there and to be a part of that, like, I hope I had a small piece. But, just to be even on the ice during EHL practice, right? there's a different role, and you need to know that as someone who's both been a head coach and an assistant coach at varying degrees of levels through the hockey world. You have to have a different approach to when you're running the show versus you're assisting the show. And to make that run with the EHL, you know, that overtime win against the Ducks and to come back there and to just kind of ride that momentum and the confidence and swagger that we had was such a great experience. And it's something that I'll never forget. I said this to Hooley and Maddie when we were, you know, celebrating. You know, I have been on a lot of teams that have, for whatever reason, come just short, both as a player, as a coach, and outside of some tournaments. That's my first ever championship, like outright, like full season championship. And to be a part of that was just so special, you know, on the ice, that celebration, you know, taking pictures and videos, and, you know, the guys dumping the ice on Hooley was so great. And I will cherish it for the rest of my life. Like, what a magical run it was. And, you know, a different part than being a head coach, but as you know, you see it with the cup every year or whatever level of hockey you're watching, it does take a team to contribute to all that. And, you know, I hope I was able to play, you know, a very small, but hopefully somewhat important part.
Between your experiences with the EHLP team and your experience with the program in general, like you were alluding to just now with the EHL team and being a part of that championship run, with all of that considered, how does that sort of adjust your outlook and your expectations for this upcoming season?
Yeah, good question. I mean, look, when it's the benefit, but also the curse of winning a championship. I mean, we were able to essentially commit all of our regular age out guys NCAA, and we even lost a couple guys who were underagers, you know, to NCAA hockey. So everyone wants you when you win a championship, but you know, I think the work that Hooley and Maddie and everybody has done, the roster we have now put together at the EHL for this upcoming year, and honestly the P, which is going to be an older, more traditional premier team this year. Hooley said it the day after we won. He said, no one's ever double dipped. No one's done it yet. We've gone P, then E. No one's done it twice in the same year. I think that's realistically the expectations for this year, and that's what we're pushing for. And continuing for me with the premier team this year, hoping to have a handful of guys who also play a role at the EHL level, whether that's 10, 15, 20 games, whatever it might be. We want guys to be able to push for that and let them know that, hey, we're here in your corner. We want those guys pushing for that level. And that should be the goal for them too, to not only have great team success, but to grow as an individual, to, you know, do bigger and better things, frankly. But for me, that's going to be our expectation going into camp. It's a long season. A million different things could happen. We saw that, man. There was a point in November last year with both teams that we were like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Are we even good at this? And look how it turned out. So I think, you know, it puts more pressure on us, but I like that. It makes it more fun environment. It requires me to be as good as I can be and continue to grow.
All right, well, Connell, that just about wraps it up. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're really looking forward to see what will become of the P team this upcoming season. Thank you again for your time.
Oh, thanks, guys. My pleasure, as always. You know, I'm looking forward to the long weekends at the rink again sometime soon.